This is my ride review of the Tyme ADHX.
It's certainly springtime here in the Lake District. There's calves and lambs in the fields. Bluebells are springing up everywhere. The roads are dry. Hopefully the gravel's dry because I am on the Tyme Alpe D'Huez X. An interesting bike. Is it a gravel bike? Is it one of these newfangled all-road bikes? Or is it an endurance road bike? Well, I've got this for a few days. This is my first ride on it, and we're going to be doing a combination of some steep hills, as you can hear, and a bit of gravel today.
And I don't feel like I can just stand here in my cycling kit talking about this. We'll cut to those outdoor sections when we need to. I've got a lot of notes. I've been riding this for about 10 days now, and I've got a really good idea about what I want to say in this review.
So this is the Kentmere Valley. Just in case. Oh, lambs. Just in case you thought I wasn't taking it anywhere hilly enough, that'll do. In my opinion, this is what this bike is all about. I've closed the gate behind me. There's a dead end and a trail that way, and I want to go exploring. I think that's the essence of what this bike is about. Let's go.
Now, it is not going to be a gleaming review. I've got a lot of criticisms on this bike. The build quality, the paintwork, I think we've talked about that in depth, and the whole ADHX range comes in this gorgeous tinted lacquer. Comes in these lovely muted tones. This is the amber. They also do a green, a blue, and like a charcoal. They all look absolutely fantastic. Anyone would be proud to own this. The build quality is all there, I promise you. Problem with this is it's got a massive identity crisis. And today we are going to try and rewrite Tyme's marketing to get this right, because this bike is fantastic. It's just massively misunderstood.
Since we're on a gravel bike, I suppose we better take the gravel route. Now, I was initially scared that quite a steep head angle for a gravel bike was going to be pretty unmanageable. It's okay. I prefer something slacker just to help roll over those rocks. I'm definitely having to do little changes of pressure on the handlebars, I'd say. It's not like I lift the handlebars, but you definitely sort of have to lighten the front end and combine it with the right pedal stroke just to pull yourself over some rocks, rather than let the trail and the rake of the fork deal with it. It's a much more traditional and manual way of riding off-road, I guess.
What I want to go through today is what I think it is, and Tyme are almost there. You see, they have these two bikes, the Alpe D'Huez, which you can see glinting in the background there, more on that later. And the marketing for this is really, really clear. This is like the white paper from them. And let me read it out to you. Alpe D'Huez is more than a climb in La Tour. Helicopters, police escorts, blue smoke, screaming face painters, and a crowd of 300,000 cycling fans guarantee that every visit to this legendary summit will be crowned forever in glory. To ride the new Alpe D'Huez disc is to enjoy something that eludes description, that can't be duplicated by any other machine. This is the ultimate road bike. I think we've got a pretty clear understanding about what that Alpe D'Huez bike is about. I can picture it in my mind, down in the Alps or Sacre or something like that, out of the saddle, sweat dripping off my face, every muscle contraction rewarded by forward momentum. That is what this bike is all about. So when you call a bike the ADHX, i.e. the Alpe D'Huez X, you've got something in your mind already about what to expect, but then you read their specs.
Well, we're about halfway up the struggle. Big steep climb here in the Lake District, and got a bit of a breather before it kicks up again. But this climb's like a traditional climbing bike. It invites you to get out of the saddle, stamp on the pedals, swing your bike from side to side a little bit, you know, put a little bit more effort in than perhaps my Look 765, which is very much sit down, spin. So if you are a slightly more traditional rider that likes that sort of feedback, this is probably a bike a little bit suited to you. Right, well, that's Vic up ahead looking super strong.
And this is what they say. In fact, I'm not going to read all this out because it's nonsense right from the start. Time's debut gravel bike has already notched a few firsts in developing a reputation for riding at the front. It goes on, first to build quality, braided Dyneema, you get the idea. Time's first performance gravel offering is more than a cursory nod. In many ways, the arrival of the ADHX makes it clear leader in the very crowded field, with pedigree to spare, an iconic look, and an attitude eager to make a splash. Well, that, I'm sorry, is complete nonsense. This crowded field that they're talking about, let's go performance gravel bikes that we know right now. Specialized S-Works Diverge, tyre clearance 47mm, 3T Exploro, tyre clearance 40C, and that's cutting it for a gravel bike. The Pinerello Grevil 42mm, Canyon Grail 45mm, Trek Checkpoint 45mm, Time ADHX 38mm, and that's probably pushing it. I think 35, which has got this fitted at the moment, is a lot more like it. So I don't think it fits into that category at all.
Climbs a bit like a steel hardtail. Got to work it a little bit. Every sort of pedal stroke as you try and pull over a bit of a boulder actually does that. I feel like it all springs over the obstacles. Well, as you can see, this is a pretty bumpy piece of gravel. I've got these tyres pumped up to 60 psi, right on their upper limit, because I wanted to really play with that whole all-road experience. It's okay, plenty of grip, plenty of comfort. It's not the most comfortable off-road experience in the world, but it's okay.
What is it? And you start looking at the geometry chart and you start taking this for a ride, and it starts to make sense. You see, the best way of thinking about this, and how they probably should have communicated this, is not a performance gravel bike. They shouldn't even mentioned the word gravel. It should quite simply be, it is the Alpe D'Huez X. And I think we can rewrite their marketing with that in mind. The thing that makes me think about that is when you start looking at their geometry charts, what they've essentially done with this bike is take a Alpe D'Huez and they tried to fit some bigger tyres in it without messing with the geometry too much. So how do they do that? Well, first of all, they need to make this distance here longer. So they've made the fork longer, which means that they've made the headset a little bit shorter, and they brought the rake out, which has increased the trail ever so slightly as well. At the back, they make the chainstays a little bit longer to get a slightly larger wheel in it. And that's about it. All they've done is essentially turn down the agile handling of the Alpe D'Huez and turn up the stability just by a very subtle amount. It kind of makes it into a more sophisticated and versatile version of the Alpe D'Huez.
Dreams. This bit gets quite steep, so I'm switching to a different view. I think I might have found the limit of my skill and the bike's ability. Let's just see what happens. then that means having the range of movement I want in the bike. Let's get down with these drops, and let's see if we can build some bit of speed. Okay, there we go. Whew. Now it's on. Woo. Oh my god. Ooh, that's steep. There we go. Yep. There's nothing quite like being ridiculously underbiked. Oh. That was ridiculous. Okay, that descent was definitely out of scope for a bike like this. That's like red, almost black standard mountain biking. You'd have your suspension turned on and your dropper post down. The fact I was even able to ride that at all flabbergasted me, to be honest. Okay, I didn't stay on the rocky part all the time. I came off to the side, but it was still really, really steep. The reason I could do that, I think, was because those forks don't flex at all. And what I mean by that front wheel tracked exactly where I wanted it to go. I definitely had to work the bike. It wasn't like slack head angle or suspension seat down where you could just roll over things. I really had to work the bike, find a line, pull it over rocks to get the most out of it. And I wouldn't want to make a habit of doing that regularly on a bike like this, but it's nice to know if you're off the beaten track and you come across something like that, it will do it. It will do it. It'd be fun for a short length of time. After that, you'll probably feel quite beaten up. Anyway, right now we are in the long Cervello Valley. Isn't this beautiful? This is where Postman Pat was conceived, I believe, and it's pretty much downhill all the way. So, right, best get back to work. So that, in my mind, makes it's probably its biggest competitor. It's probably the Cervello Caledonia. And if I just read out the Cervello Caledonia blurb, it reads like this: Caledonia doesn't fit in a box nicely, and we like it that way. It was conceived by our Thursday night rides, routes that often play fast and loose with road ride in commas. Modern road riders are looking for bikes to handle long distances, high pace, no limits, and offer maximum fun. The Caledonia delivers performance, comfort, and speed. Oh, and you can fit a 34mm tyre in there, or 31mm with fenders. Now that's quite a good point, because you can't fit mudguards onto this. There's no mounting for proper mudguards. I'm sure you can like bodge something on there. But that to me is getting much closer to how I think this bike actually rides. See, I've taken it on a variety of roads. One, I've taken it up the struggle hill climb, and it climbs similar to a climbing bike, to be honest. It invites you to get out of the saddle, to stamp on the pedals, to swing the bike left to right, to wrestle those handlebars up those steep climbs. That's in contrast to like my Look 765, which is very much encourage you to sit down, spin a cadence. This has still got that sort of traditional road bike feel that goes, come on in, give it some, which is great. I kind of enjoy that sometimes. And when you do, you still get that rewarding feel. In fact, one of the best ways I can think of describing it is it compares a lot to very traditional steel road bikes, but without all the weight and the noise. It responds, it feels like it's made of steel, but of course it's not, it's carbon. And I just kept coming back to that concept the whole time. The steering is accurate, the stiffness is all there where you expect it to be. It feels like, really does feel like every muscle fiber is still going through into traction and momentum. It's just not as bonkers as a traditional lightweight climbing bike. And then hitting fast road descents coming down the Kirkstone Pass, I was really, really comfortable in this. One, it is horrifically potholed towards the top of that descent now, and when I was riding next to friends on this, I was bombing past them on that sort of really rough section towards the top. And once the road started to smooth out,
that's when people started to catch me up with their much faster rolling tyres than this. But during that rough stuff, just full of confidence, open your stance, bomb straight through it. That's what this bike was really, really good at. Taking it off-road then and putting it onto its gravel territory, it doesn't respond how you expect it to. It suffers from having a very steep head angle, which means that you can't hit rocks and potholes and expect to roll over them. However, it kind of compensates because the front fork is very, very stiff. So if you can manually put in the steering input and really work the bike, you can still get the speed out of it, but you can't just keep hitting things. You've really got to think about picking your line. It's a bit more like riding a short travel cross-country bike compared to an enduro bike. An enduro bike will just plow through things, whereas the cross-country bike, you've got to like look ahead and plan your line. It's a little bit like that. It'll do it, but you've got to really be skilled and work at it. And I think with this in mind, I'm going to have a go at rewriting the marketing spiel for this bike, and I had some thoughts. So this is how I think that marketing blurb should read. The ADHX is our Alpe D'Huez with some added X factor. We added a little extra tyre clearance, a little extra fork trail, and a little longer wheelbase. This subtly stabilises the agile handling of the Alpe D'Huez for a more sophisticated and adventurous ride. With these characteristics, you can tailor your own experience, explore a little further, and enjoy exceptional handling wherever your journey takes you. Turn off the smooth alpine roads, explore the backcountry, and when tarmac turns the track, turns the trail, the only limitation is your imagination and your tyres. The ADHX is ready to take the rough with the smooth. Feel free to criticise in the comments and whatever. I'm not a marketeer, but that to me starts conjuring up my imagination, because what is that X factor? What do I want that X factor to be? Experience, something extra. I want to explore, be more adventurous with it. And then you can start like custom making this into the bike that you want. You can put tyres like this on it. These are 35mm Cervello G1s. Actually, an all-round tyre. Works absolutely great. You could put 35mm Pinerello Cinturano in there and have a completely different experience. You can put some deep section wheels on there. You can put some incredibly lightweight climbing wheels on there. And then, to me, this bike starts to make sense. It is an Alpe D'Huez with a little extra. I think we need some final thoughts here just to round off this video. You see, I very much see the Tyre brand as being a phoenix from the flames moment in its history right now. It's under new ownership, it's got some new models. The Alpe D'Huez, you can see there glistening in pink in the background, waiting for its ride review, and of course the ADHX that we've just talked about. These are the first two frames from that new generation, if you like, and they look great. You know, we're looking forward to ride testing that Alpe D'Huez, but that is the classic 73 angled. Every road bike brand must have that in its range somewhere. That is a Tarmac SL7, that is a Cannondale Super 6, it's a Cervello R5, it's all of those things, and I think it's going to execute that perfectly. Watch out for that review. The ADHX then probably is trying to tick a few too many boxes in its first attempt, and it needn't have bothered because it's got something very unique going on here, which I think is going to appeal to a lot of people. The closest that I can really think of off the top of my head is probably the Cervello Caledonia, where it just extends that X into a different type of road bike category altogether. There's nothing wrong with that. It's good to use your imagination, your creativity, because this is a fantastic canvas to almost make it what you want of it. But it does start laying the foundations for what the rest of the time range might look like. Now we have the Skylon, which is their aero, you know, balls to the wall, speed machine. Fantastic. I'm pretty sure that's going to get an upgrade at some point, you know, get rid of that weird headset of the old generation and update it with some more modern characteristics. Looking forward to that. But Time also had the Fluidity, which was their endurance road bike. And if I was Time right now, looking at the sort of the endurance road market and seeing where that's going, and on one side you've got like the sort of Trek Domane armchair-esque, and on the other side you've kind of got the Look 765 longer wheelbase, slack head angle momentum machine. I would hopefully that they're going to steer towards that Look 765 competitor and potentially use their carbon know-how to weave in some more compliance and comfort without necessarily using elastomers like Villiers and Trek do, maybe even a proprietary seat post. Now that would be a very compelling offer in the endurance market, and the Fluidity name sort of lends itself to something that has momentum and motion to it, and I like that idea. But then that leaves the door open for that X factor thing, just like this is the Alpe D'Huez X. What about a Fluidity X, a FX? And then that is that is where the gravel bike should come in. Slacker head angles, more tyre clearance, and then that is your competitor to things like the Diverge and the 3T Exploro, Pinerello Grevil, all those sort of things. That to me is where time can add some value to that gravel market. So yeah, I think it's shaping up to be a very interesting range. Okay, as always, I am really looking forward to your comments on this one. Do you own one of these? Do you lust after one of these? Has this review been helpful to you? Make your mind up as to which way to go. Have you got some ideas of your own of how you would build this ADHX into something that's going to really suit you? Because that, I think, is the key. All right, thanks for listening, everyone. Take it easy.
Why? Because we can. And if we can, we do.